Right, so getting back to this Supra, and the next bit in line for this car is to sort of get the fuel line issues sorted. Well, not issues, but just to get them all, because as you know, they were just laid in place, so I need to get all of those sorted out, and then we can sort of go from there. So let's get to it. So like I just said in that last clip, the next things to sort out are the oil lines for the oil sandwich plate and the oil cooler that's going to be running on this car, and also the fuel pressure regulator that I've got. I need to try and figure out somewhere where I can install this that it's not going to get in the way, because obviously there's two nice little bolt holes there, but if I put it here, it's literally right smack bang in the way of the heater cooler pipes there. So that's a bit of a pain. The other place I could put them is over here on that side of things, so that could go there. And there's also this bolt here, so I could also share the P-clip bolt and fit it there, but then I think it might be getting a bit close to the inlet plenum. So I'm just going to get the plenum now, plonk it back on again, and see where we're up to in regards to what space I've got in order I can put that bloody thing. Right, so that's the inlet plenum back on again, so at least now we can sort of see what kind of space we've got. And like I said, this area here where that P-clip is already quite close, so in terms of getting that in there, it's going to be an extremely tight fit to get all of the associated pipe work and stuff in there. I might just have to make a bracket that bolts to those two mounting points there, but instead of having it mounted here, have it over this way a bit, and then I've at least got a little bit of wiggle room. So yes, so I'm struggling a bit here with this one. I need to go on the internet now and have a look, see what other people have done. A bit of cheating. Right, so I've decided that this area here, just above the plenum, is going to be the best spot for the fuel pressure reg to sit. It's got clearance out the bottom, down the corner there, where my little finger is. And then the return, obviously, the return is from here, so it'll go down underneath the inlet runners and then pop up and into here. Doesn't interfere with the heater matrix pipes, so it's just a nice easy spot for it to sit. But as you can see, in the middle of there's absolutely nowhere for this to be mounted to. So what I'm going to do, this bracket here, there's two bolts on it. So those two bolts I'm going to pick up off. I'm going to make a metal plate that sits underneath and comes down, that is bent and then has a bar coming off it, which will bolt to the back of this. So it'll just be a nice flat bar that's sort of sat there. Should look alright once it's done. So this is a bit of rusty plate I've got. It's the right width. It's the same width as that piece of plate. So I'm just going to steal this little bracket that I made and copy the holes from that. So you can see what I mean. So I've made a little metal bracket with a bend in it. This will then get welded to said bit of metal, and then that is going to sit roughly around about there. So I'll have plenty of clearance off the bottom nib to go down behind the plenum there, and then this end, although it's a bit close to some of these, they're only vacuum lines so they can move wherever. But yeah, so it's going to sit roughly like that, so it should look nice like that. So there we go, that is the bracket almost finished. I've just spot welded it for the time being, as you can see, but that is pretty much where it's going to sit, and I think it looks alright there. So next job to do is to get it fully welded up, get it sandblasted, get it painted, and then we can start making out for the fuel lines. I might do the fuel lines first and then do all that afterwards, because that can be done in the garage. So yeah, so not a million miles off there with that now. So yeah, and the other thing I was looking at is this. I'm still on the fence as to whether to go drive-by wire or not. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out financially. Right, so in terms of the fuel, I am literally just trying to figure out what's required. So on the end there, I've got an AN6 fitting, a 90°, so that's going to be all right going down to the fuel filter. I've got a 90° fitting coming in from the return from the fuel rail to the fuel pressure reg. So I'm trying to figure out how to get from here to here, because there's another fitting on there. That's also a 90° fitting, so I don't know if to take it underneath and sweep it round and up, which is probably going to be best, or whether to get a fitting on here that brings it back up along the top, because I've got this point here and that point there, which I could put some P-clips and run the hose along the top here and just have it pop up there. So I'm not quite sure on how to do that bit yet. And then on this end, I haven't got a fitting for it because I'm just using spares as what I've got. If you remember, I did the fuel pump in the boot, so these are just spares that I had left over from doing that. So I'm just trying to figure out angles of fittings that I'm going to need for that. So in terms of fittings, I'm going to show you unlocking my screen. But yeah, if you ever get stuck trying to find angles of things, the best thing to do, I find, is take a picture, screenshot, and you can offer it up. I'm trying to do this without the phone reverting, doing that. So if you offer it up like that, you can see the angles in which it's going to be. So that angle will bring that fuel line nicely from there down into this gap and under the fuel line, under the inlet runners, sorry. I'll show you what I mean. So if I take this one off there, this is a 90°. So if I put 90° on there, that is pretty much going to be coming straight off, straight down into the power steering pump area, which I don't really want it because there's a lot of bracketry stuff down here and these hoses aren't super flexible. So I want it to go through that gap there, not straight down. So by using that, you can see the difference without it flipping in angle between the two. So that one, the 120°, should be a good compromise to get that fuel line to go underneath there. So I'm going to order one of those and a couple of other little bits and pieces, because I've got this Y piece here, because not that you can see it, the fuel filter's down there, which is this line here, which is an AN8. So this AN8 line is going to be split into two AN6s, which feed each end of the rail, and then the AN6 there is the return back to the fuel pressure reg. And then from the bottom port on that reg, you can just about see it there, that black tip, that goes straight back down to the hose that's under there. I can't get at it at the minute. So eventually this is going to come back off again, so I can get at all of this lot to do it. So yeah, so that's the next task. So we're getting there slowly. I've got another 3D print on the printing bed for this. So I've now made a new bracket which pushes this relay unit over so that it misses these plugs and gives me plenty of space for those basically. So hopefully once that's done, I'll get them in finished and we can go from there. So yeah, but right about now it's 10 o'clock at night, so I'm going to bed. So I shall resume tomorrow. So there we have it. That's the new mount I've printed. So that now fits perfectly. Let me just slide that out the way a touch. So that now fits. Let me hold it with my other hand. Perfectly in there. It's cleared up the space against those plugs, and it's just shunted everything over a little bit. And yeah, so just need to now get some riv nuts, get them melted into them holes. So I've got a nice anchorage point for the screws, and then we're pretty much good to get that installed and good to go. So there you go, that's it all. I could do with some different types of fittings for in there, some countersunk ones, because these are domed, so as you can see they're kicking the box out a little bit. But for what I need it for, it's alright, it's not going anywhere. So that has cleared up the space for these plugs. There's plenty of room for those plugs. Get your hands in there now to get to them. So happy with that. The next thing to do is to sort out the fuel lines. Now I have got some bits on order because as I said in that last clip, I've basically got these bits and pieces. So I've not got everything that I need. So when I went to bed last night, I did have a think about how I'm going to do it. And I think I'm literally going to get the Y piece on the wall down there somewhere. So I've just got 2 lines coming up. I've got the 90 there, and I am going to put a 180 on the end here and run the fuel line directly back along the top of the inlet runners here. P-clip there, P-clip there, and then they can both be terminated at the same point. Just makes everything nice and simple and easy to work with. Instead of having one line running off under there and another one going down, it just makes everything a lot easier. So I think that is the plan. So until them bits turn up, which might not be till Monday now, we're on Friday, because I only ordered them last night, so they might not be here till then. But until then, I can get a few little bits and pieces done. Not much, but I can. I'm just trying to figure out what's next to do. Right, so I figured one thing I can do, I might as well get this bracket fully welded up and get it sandblasted ready for paint and get the acid etch primer on it then, and then it can be just put to one side until I get the final colour coat for it. So yeah, I'm going to get that welded up now and then we'll go from there. Right, so that's it, fully welded up now. I'll just give it a quick go around with angle grinder just to take off all the machining, not the machining, what's it called? The coating that's on the metal, I can't think what it's called. From the forging place where they roll it, so it's all a cold roll edge, you know what I mean? So get that etch primered now, and then that's pretty much ready to rock and roll. One of the joys of having the diesel heater plugged in is the tube here that I have my hot air coming down, perforated holes so it wafts out warm air all the way along the bench. But if you take the cap out the end, it all comes out the end here and you can warm your paint up. Because again, it's bloody freezing in this garage, so yeah, it's not exactly the warmest. I think it's currently inside here, I think it's around about 1, maybe just above freezing. So as you can tell, it's cold. It's not ideal. So yeah, I'm going to get the acid etch done on that, and then I can't quite think what else it was I was going to do off the top of my head. But yes, progress is progress. So I figured whilst I was in here, I would get back to the radiator panel basically. So as you can see, the supports are on that standard panel for the radiator, but as I upgraded this one to be able to jack the car up off, I didn't get round to fitting the mounts for those. So my plan was basically to get a dimple die, cut some stuff, because the actual dimple die there creates the strength in that bracket. So all I've got is basically some flat steel. So once you cut a hole out of a bit of flat steel, it gets quite weak. So the last thing you want is a radiator that's full of fluids, it's a little bit heavy, bouncing up and down as the car's driving and not having enough strength in the mounts that it's intended for. So I've made these. So this is the flat piece of flat steel basically, but on the rear side of it I've got some 10 millibar that has been welded to it to stiffen these up. So I've only made the one for now, as I just wanted to see how it was going to go. So once it's finished, these are going to get welded to here in the same position as those, and then they will take the weight of said radiator. So on here somewhere, I don't know where I've put it now, there's another one over there, so I'll just grab that one. But yeah, on there, the mounts for the rubber for the radiator just nice and snugly pop in there, so they're quite good. So I'm going to make another one of these now and then get that welded onto there. And there we have it. So that's 2 more brackets, well, 1 more bracket. So that's them ready, and as you can see now, they're nice and solid those, so they're not going to bend. So yeah, so I need to get them scrubbed on the side of there and get them welded into place. But before I do that, I think I'm going to dig out the radiator, which I think is in that white box, and then I know that everything is lined up, because the last thing I want to do is just guess between points, and then when I come to fit the radiator it doesn't fit in. So yeah, let's get that down. So as you can see, that box has been up there for some time. It's collected a lot of dirt and dust, so let's go ahead and get it out. Sure, this was a Mishimoto rad. The intercooler was sat on top of this box. Ooh, so there we go. I hate polystyrene, it gets everywhere. Can't remember if it was the Mishimoto one or the Whiff Bits own. I can't remember now. I know it's got the Whiff Bits cap on there, but I might just have to swap hands. Just bear with me. Well, I think that kind of confirms what make it is. So yeah, so it's a nice little radiator. It's pretty much exactly the same as a Mishimoto one anyway. So yeah. Right, so the tabs are down here on the bottom, or at least they should be. Yeah, there they are. Little lugs underneath there. So there's one there, there's one on that end as well. So they are what the rubber mounts basically mount onto these bits. So them holes there go onto the lugs on the bottom of that radiator. So long as these are spaced correctly, that's all that matters. And there we go. So I've offered up the edges of that to that panel, the edges of that to that panel, got these somewhat in the correct place. I'm just going to now get the radiator, drop it on, make sure that the holes align, and then we'll get the welder out and get these welded into place. Right, so that's them now tacked into place. All the bungs fit perfect, so now that they're tacked, I'm just going to run a line of weld along the top and the underside face, and then we're pretty much good to go. So there we go, that's them all welded up now. They're all okay, they're all good to go. So top and bottom is welded, so there's no ingress of water going to get in there into that joint and corrode anything. So just going to let them cool down, and then once I've done that, I'll get some paint on them. Right, so that's them all painted up now. They don't look the neatest, but that's just because of the camera. They're doing alright. So once they're dry, I can get it installed on the car. So whilst I had the paint out, this stuff doesn't like being opened and then the tin shut, so that tin that's in there, I'll put it in the bin. As you can see, I couldn't get the lid off, because once you open it you get it round the edge, so I've had to pop 2 holes in the lid and pour out what was left. So yeah, that stuff's good stuff. So this one is the rear crash bar, if you remember from an earlier video. Probably not on TikTok, but probably not on YouTube, but definitely on TikTok. You'll have seen me on there making that, so I thought whilst I'm doing some painting, I might as well paint that. So I'm utilising the diesel heater, so I've got the air coming out of these vents here, so these are quite warm actually, so that's blowing down through the centre of the tube. A nice warm breeze coming out the end of there, so eventually that'll heat the tube through and dry that paint off a bit quicker. So once that's done, it's a case of getting it installed on the car, and we're pretty much good to go from there. So I think this radiator panel is ready for a second coat, so I'm going to do that now, and then just got to wait for it to dry. But if you get it on your hands, I'm not joking, it don't come off. You've got to wait for your skin to grow out, unless you catch it early. But I haven't, so it's gone off on my hands already. So yeah, second coat now, just going to get that on there, and once we're done, I get it loaded on the car. So whilst I'm waiting for these to dry, I'm going to go back outside now to the car and have a look at some of those fuel lines. So I found myself a length of the PTFE hose. It was actually sat on the top of the car, even though I've just bloody ordered some now. It's usually the case, you can't find it, you order some and then it shows up. So, but anyway, so yeah, so if I do a 180 off this fuel line here, I'm just trying not to knock my brew over there with the end of that hose, and run this hose backwards. I don't think that'll look too bad there, so it's black and shiny. ties in with everything else, so that should be good to go. So what I'm going to do now, get this inlet manifold taken off, and we'll get some fittings made out. So now you can see a little bit clearer as to what's going on. So as you can see down there, the green part, that's the fuel filter. So that wire needs to move the other side of this, but this is going to go up to about here to this bulkhead. I'm not quite sure I'm going to hold it in place there just yet, but there's going to be the Y piece, which is this bit, installed around about here, and then the AN hoses are then going to come off this and up to the 90-degree ends on the end of the fuel rail. And then obviously when the fuel pressure reg is back on there, it's just straight down with, where's it gone? With this one, so this hose here, which is currently that one, it's just going to go straight down from the fuel pressure regulator straight onto that. So that's dead easy to sort, that one. It's just all of the other shenanigans around here. Mainly with this one, because of the angles of these pipes, you can get these Y fittings where they come out straight at the top, which I might do yet. But seeing as I've already got these are about 20 quid, I think they are, for that type of Y fitting. So yeah, I don't know if to get another one, because if I put it there, this one's going to be really curved to come up, and that one's, yeah, I'll make it work. Anyway, so let's just get to it. Right, so I measured roughly how long it needs to be. So this was the end that was on the fuel filter. So this is where I've taped it up. So it's the bottom edge of this hose. So I need to go and cut that now and get the AN straight PTFE line, basically the same one of these, to go to that fitting. So because I'm still waiting on an order of the Dash 8 stuff, I'm going to crack on using the AN6. So basically I've already got one end made out on this, so if I make out this other end, then I can cut out the bit that I don't need and I'm left with a full loop, which I'll explain again later on, similar to the wire situation that I was doing the other day. So I'm just going to get this cut and I'll show you the next bit. So I literally just use a 1mm blade on my angle grinder and it gives you a nice cut like that. It's hard for this camera to focus, but yes, you get a nice cut, nice finish on there. So the next job to do is just to give this outer PTFE coating just a bit of a spray, a WD-40, just to help the next fitting slide. So the PTFE fittings basically come as 3 pieces. So you've got your main female end, which will fit up against the male end of whatever component you want to fit it to. Now this is what I would call a male end, because it looks a bit more like a male end if you ask me. And you also get this little olive that goes over there, and then the coupling part that goes round it goes on there like so. So basically this has to go on the end of your line first. Now because this is coated, it's actually quite a bit thicker than it is with just normal braid. I don't think I've got any Dash 6 AM braid, which I can show you just at the minute, but just give us 2 secs and I'll have a look. Right, so this is some black, although it's stainless, it's actually painted black braid. So as you can see, this fitting, once you've got it over the initial splayed out face there, is nice and easily free flowing on this coating. So you can take that off there quite easily. They are tapered so that the braided ends can go into there, but normally you'd wrap a little bit of tape around there, so then when you cut it, these braids don't splay out as much. But because this PTFE coated stuff is PTFE coated, that splaying of the braid on the inside of the hose there doesn't happen quite as excessive as what it does on any other wire. But as a result, because this is thicker, trying to get this onto there is a little bit of a problem. As you can see, I'm not even part way in there, so you just got to keep forcing it until you're pretty much in. But as you can see, the braid there is closed up tight against the white PTFE on the inside. So you need that braid on the inside to splay slightly so that this olive can go between the white PVC hose and the braid, because you need that braid to splay out with this. So what I need to do is get this collar to go a bit further down, and then I can cut off a little bit of this black coating and then put that olive in. You can do it without, but the easiest way I've found is to just stick a little bit of WD-40 on there, and then just get to the point where you can hold this in your vice jaws like so, and then push the hose through until it pokes out like that. Then as you can see, that's all the way through now, but that is really tight in order to push that through. So what I need to do now is just cut maybe 5 to 7 millimeters of this black coating off of there, and then we're good to go. So I'll do that. Basically just use a sharp knife and just cut into the PVC until you feel it touch the braid underneath. I'm not going to lie, it's not the easiest of tasks. I have done it before where I've used a pipe cutter, but sometimes it can gnarl up the braid underneath, which is not ideal. So you just use a knife and just gently go around it till you feel it touch the braid underneath. There'll be some other pros out there that tell you to do it differently, but this is just the way in which I do it. There'll be somebody out there saying, oh, you don't need to do that at all. I'm like, well, this is just the way it works for me. And then once you got that started, cut the braid away. This knife needs changing, it's a bit blunt. Like that. And then basically, that should then peel off. So that's that PTFE coating that I was on about. So as you can see, I've now got some excess exposed braid there, which is what we needed to get this bit in between the braid and over that PTFE line, like so. Make sure you ain't got any braid on the inside edge. So that's that, I'm happy with that. So the next thing to do now is reload this back in there and grip it in the jaws. Can you still see what I'm doing there, or is it the wrong way now? So let me adjust the camera slightly. She's currently about as far as I can go on my camera's arm. So the next thing to do is just stick the slightest little bit of WD-40 on there and insert that into the olive and into the white side of the PTFE hose. It should all of a sudden just go with a bit of a pop. Make sure you're not gnarling anything up inside, which I'm not. Now there are tools that you can get that help with this stage. There we go, just felt it pop in. There we go, and that's that. So the next trick to do is to push the hose back through until your threads touch that nut, and then once you're there, use your spanner just to start winding them threads in. There we go, threads started now, I can feel it getting tighter. And then you just keep on going, winding that in until it almost locks. It'll get to a point where it's almost too tight to tighten. Like that. And there you go. So that is that nut run all the way in. So that basically that little olive pushes into this tapered part splays out the braid and grips onto that braid as tight as it can, and the end of the PTFE gets squashed around that little male nib that I showed you just earlier on in the clip. So there you go, so that's one end made out. I did the other one earlier, so I've now got two ends made up. So for now I've just tie wrapped the fuel lines in a direct up position, so move that plug out of the way. So as you can see, the cut mark is roughly the lower side of this tape, so the Y is going to start from round about there. So once this is installed about there, you can get the gist of how much excess AN fitting line I've got. So once that fitting turns up tomorrow, I'll be able to get this cut, and then we can get a more accurate idea as to where things need to be. So for now, I can't really do much more with that, but what I might do is I might get the oh, I'll tell you what I can do. I've just remembered, these things turned up yesterday. So these are the knock sensor. Will they screw in? Please go in. Might be a bit of good luck for a change. So they screw into your block, and they adapt the standard knock sensors, which are these. So that is the screw that goes into your block, and the sensor goes up against the side of your block there, basically, to the new knock sensors, which use an M8 donut style. So that then locates over the top of that, and then you run a nut down, and that's what bolts it up solidly against your engine block. So they're just a conversion stud, so I need to get them tightened up now, but I'm not quite sure what size bit they are on the end there, so let's go and get one. So I don't have the official tool, but a 5mm seems to be a nice snug fit on that, so I'll just have to give it a go and see how we get on. Can you see it there? I'm doing all this upside down. It's right behind them wires, isn't it? Only needs nipping, don't need to be tight. That seems pretty good. Do the other one over here. So that one's under there. So that goes in there. There we go. Let's nip that. That's that in. So next thing to do for them is basically just put the knock sensors on and get some 8mm nuts. I'm not sure if they need to have a washer on them or not. I'm just going to go and double check that. I'm pretty sure they will, but yeah, get them installed. So now the studs are installed, the next thing to do is to install the actual sensors themselves. Now it's crucial on this bit that you make sure that the face of your engine block is nice and clear. There's no rust, no paint, no powder coat, no, you know what I mean, no grease, completely dry, and install them that way, because the last thing you want is getting false knock readings. Now I'm just using a standard nylock nut. Now you can get nuts that have got like little flared heads on them, but you don't need that. And also you'll notice I've not got a washer on there, mainly because you won't put a pillow between a microphone unless you want to muffle the sound. So yeah, so apparently the knock sensors aren't keen on anything other than just having what they need, so your best bet is just to leave them well alone. So when I tighten this one up, I'm going to kick it over just slightly so I've got a nice run for the cable to go between this. It is quite close to the oil filter housing, so if I put it there, it gives me enough space for the plug to go. Probably similar over there as well. I'll probably lean this one inward slightly so that it all clears the starter motor there. So yeah, I'm just going to get the torque wrench out now, which is here. So this is currently set to 140 inch-pounds. Don't ask me what that is in anything else because I don't know off the top of my head. But yes, link didn't give an official torque setting, but I've been on the internet and I've looked at a few forums, stuff like that, just to see what the general consensus is around about the donut knock sensors. So they all seem to be about that torque, so that's what I'm going to go with. Right, so I've just run them down by hand, and then the next thing to do is use the torque wrench, make sure that that bit sits exactly where you want it to, which lo and behold is going to move. So unfortunately I need both hands, one to hold the knock sensor and one to do torque wrenching, so I'll be back to you. And that's that basically, so that's that one torqued up. So this is the cable for it, so once that's in, just make sure that you've got enough space for the plug to go, which it does, so I'm happy with that there. Same with the other one at the back. Wherever that plug is, I think it's that one. There we go. And that one goes, come here, that way. So that's that. Happy with the positioning of both of those. As you can see what I mean, the size of the plug to where it needs to sit, just kicked out past the start motor. And that one there, as you can see, if I'd have kept it where it was, it would have clashed with the oil filter housing there. So just needed to move that one over slightly. So that's both of them in there, nice and easy. That's a nice and easy install, that one. It took the whole of about 2 minutes. So yes, so that's that in. Next thing will probably be installing this lower radiator panel now that it's pretty much finished. But before I do that, I want to get this painted white and that said lower radiator panel also painted white. I painted the rear crash bar, so the rear crash bar can go back on, and then the bumper that I've just got sat on the floor under here at the minute can then also go back on, and it gets it out of the way and stops me kicking it. So yeah, so that's next on the to-do list. Right, so my delivery's turned up today, so I've made out my large fuel end, so this one goes down to the fuel filter. Not going to teach you how to suck eggs with these AN fittings because I've just shown you in that last clip, so hence why I've made this out before. So screw that onto the fuel filter housing, if I can get it started. It's hard work this with one hand, bear with me. So there's the large feed, so that's the -8 AN fitting, so that's that on now. It needs to come up to about here, and then the opposite end, which is this piece here, which is that Y, I'm going to get that screwed onto it now, and then we'll get the inlet manifold put back on, and we'll see where things want to sort of sit. So that's the Y in place there, so as you can see I've got quite a lot of excess AN line there. So I'm going to get the manifold reinstalled, put back into place, and then I can see where these are going to need cutting and chopping to suit. Right, so there's manifold back on. So luckily there's only the 2 little studs there, so this comes on and off dead quick. So basically I've got the 2 fuel lines now coming off that split from that Y piece down there. So one side, which is going to be this one, is going to go into this 90 degree AN fitting, and then I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this next bit, because this sort of, because of the shape of that Y piece, because it's so like splayed instead of being them coming out square together, it's sort of making things a little bit tricky, so I might replace that yet. Motor Mech, you do some great stuff, but that one is just a little bit wrong for my application. So yeah, so the other line is going to be this one, and I want it to bend sort of down and across the top of the manifolds here, down to this AN fitting at the end, so that it runs true to the plenum and the fuel rail, so it runs parallel right smack bang down middle there. But currently I don't think that is going to want to work where it is. So yeah, so I'm thinking I'm going to have to rethink that bit down there. So I've just been having a dig through my box of spare bits of
AN fittings. All of these are for rubber hose. They've not got the olive in for the PTFE. But what I was thinking is, I'm sure in here I had an AN8 link, and I do. I've got one here from, must have bought it a while ago from Speeding Parts. So this might come in very handy actually. Let me show you. So because this is so far down there, and I've put this where it's sat there, I've not got a lot of wiggle room in these pipes here. And because it's got this extra PTFE coating on the outside, it's also got the PTFE lining, so these over the standard braided lines, they don't have the same amount of flex. So they don't like to do a 90-degree bend, so they're quite rigid. So my thought process was this: if I unscrew that from there, and then unscrew it from the fuel filter down there, and I'll do this. So because there's not a lot of flex in this, there's a bit, but it's under tension, and I don't like things being under tension. So I'm going to screw this onto the end of there, like so. Now I'm going to install that direct to the filter, and then these smaller lines should give me a little bit more wiggle room. Which, if anything, has actually made it worse, because now when I try and put these upright, there's a really tight bend on, it doesn't look it in the camera there, but there is a really tight bend straight out of the AN fittings there. So I'm going to have to figure this out another way. Right, so I think I've finally got it sorted. So down the bottom there, not that you can see, but there is a 45-degree AN fitting and a 90-degree AN fitting coming off that Y piece at the bottom. So instead of the Y piece coming out like that and the AN lines scooping up, I've actually turned it on its side and then brought the AN lines up from that, mainly just because it worked better, and it gave me a little bit more wiggle room. So as you can see, I've cut the hoses somewhat to length. I had that big loop before, didn't I? It was just getting in the way, so I thought sod it. So I've cut it, so that one is going to go to that AN fitting on the end of the fuel rail there, so that's nice and easy to do. This end is going to go into that 180-degree fitting, run along the top of the inlet runners here. This is a pickup point there and a pickup point there, so I'm going to put P-clip and a P-clip to hold this hose in place. And then on the back end of the hose there, obviously that now needs a 90-degree to take it back down onto this hose here. So in order to join these two together, I've got a 90-degree, so that 90 is going to go downwards onto the hose so that it matches with the other one, as you can see. Then there's a joiner in the middle there, and then there's an excuse me, and then there's an end, straight male end there that goes onto the end of this fuel line. So hopefully I'll get all that plumbed in pretty soon, and then the fuel inside of things, sorry, something's tickling me, and then hopefully the fuel inside of things there is pretty much sorted. I've just painted the bracket for the fuel pressure reg, so once that's dry I can get that installed and I can get the return line sorted out as well as, but I also need a little adapter so that I can get a, I think it's a 1/8 MPT fitting for the fuel pressure sensor. So yeah, we're making progress, so hopefully in the next clip all that'll be done. Right, so since that last little clip, I've fitted the fuel line, which is the feed to the opposite end of the rail, the return line, which is this one down here. I've got my AN fitting installed there. I've got the pipe running round to here, so it joins in to this elbow here. I've had to use a kicked elbow because this was going to clash with the rest of the fuel pipes on this end, unfortunately. So I don't think it looks too bad. So the fuel pressure reg is now in place. I've scratched my bloody bracket when I put it on, which I'm not too happy about, so that's going to have to get repainted. But now the next thing to do is these two lines, which offer up to the ends of these 90 degrees. So need to figure out, can't really get the camera in there, but figure out where these, which one's going to go to which, and get them cut. Just need to make sure that I leave a little bit of wiggle room on them, because obviously the engine rocks slightly under acceleration and load, so the last thing you want is your fuel lines being dead tight and things being yanked on when there's a bit of torque twist. So yeah, I'm going to do that now, get them measured up, get them inlet manifold taken off, get the lines back out, get them cut, get them fitted, and then put everything back together again and make sure it all suits and fits. And yeah, it just takes forever, this. So I just need to crack on with it. This is the last two of the feed side of the wires to do. So that's them finished. There's also, let me get my mic on there properly. There is also the P-clips, which are currently on order. They should be here at some point today, so they're going to go down and hold that line to these points here, so that'll keep that all nice and straight. The next one to do is this line, which is the return line, which needs to go to the port on the underside of the fuel pressure reg there. So yeah, that one's going to be a bit of a bugger to do, because that line goes all the way to the boot. So I've got to do this one in situ here, so I don't have the vise to hold the clamps, because I've got a proper, like an AN fitting vise block, which makes putting these AN fittings together a doddle, whereas without it can be a bit of a pain in the arse, especially with this PTFE coated stuff. So yeah, so I need to get on with that, and then that is pretty much the fueling side of it completed, I think. Yeah, I think it is. So right, so that's them two done. So next is, yeah, the return line. So I'm going to get this marked up, see where it needs to be chopped. Easiest way, pick your point. So obviously with these AN fittings, you've got the little olive inside. This olive crimps down onto your PTFE inner lining. So once you screw this onto whatever port you need it on, so for example, I'll show you on the end of it here, because it's easier to, it wooden here, flipping it. Right, so AN fitting, if I just screw that AN fitting on there, so you know that this point here is the point in which your hose comes to a dead stop. So that is the point in which you need to cut your line, basically. So once the, where have I just put that now? Put it in your pocket. Tell you what, I put stuff down, I forget where I've put it. So yeah, so this AN line here, that screws onto there, and as that pulls in, screws in, because this is tapered on the inside, it squeezes that little collar onto the PTFE lining on the fuel line and creates a seal around this face. So yeah, so you know that when you need to cut it, it's basically when you screw that on just before the spanner, flat face at spanner, so it's about halfway through this fitting. So you need to cut your lines to about there. I've been doing mine up to this face here, just to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. So that's where I cut my hoses to. So I'm going to get that AN fitting now screwed onto the bottom of there, which is going to be a bugger to do with one hand whilst I'm trying to film. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll put this hose into place, mark it with a little bit of masking tape, and then I know exactly where I need to cut it. So whilst I was doing the wiring, there was one thing I forgot about, and that was the loom for this, which is a fuel pressure sensor, which is going to sit on the side of the fuel pressure reg there. So I now need to get this little tiny loom through that and down into the footwell. Yeah. So that's that done. It didn't take 2 minutes, that really. It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So yeah, so now that that's done, pretty much in terms of fueling, we're all sorted. And yeah, we're good to go. So the last bit of the fueling hose, which is this one, so that's going to be the drain, not the drain, the return back to the fuel tank. So that's sorted. Can't remember what was next. But yes, we are nearly there. So that's pretty much all of the fueling side complete now. So yeah, so the next little bit I've got to sort out is this.
the turbo. As you can see, the turbo isn't fully fit. It's just sat currently on one nut there at the back. So it wants to sit around about there. So when I did all the mocking up for this on the engine stand, basically, just let me drop one of those in there and it's not going to wiggle around and move. When I did all the work for this on the engine stand, everything was hunky-dory. But as you can see, now that the turbo is in place, the angle of this, I'm not joking, there's probably 3 inches of space there between it and the chassis rail. So I can clock it a little bit more, but not a right lot, because then it's going to hit my drain tube there. I could get an elbow welded on here, because if I use a silicone joiner there, it is so close to the collector area of the manifold there, it's just going to get so hot that it'll probably end up burning its way through the silicone eventually. So yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out another way in which to sort this out. So this might need to be moved yet, which is a bit of a bugger, because I've already made up the AN fitting that goes to the back to the drain on the engine block. So I need to try and refigure all of that. But as of now, I can't be bothered doing that just yet, because I've been working on something else. So as you know, the inlet manifold currently is running this. So you've got the standard Q45 throttle body there. It's a massive unit. It's got all these springs and ugly looking bits on the side of it, and it just doesn't look very pretty. So I've made the decision. I am going to go drive by wire. So I've been experimenting with pedals, as you do. So just let me grab these, and there we go. So standard Mark IV Supra pedal, Toyota GT86 pedal, and this one is off a van, I believe. So this is a Toyota Estima, I think it was. So in terms of pedals, the GT86 one was miles out, because as you can see, the standard pedals is a 2-bolt pattern. They're about 45mm apart, and as you can see, they are complete polar opposites. So they're a diagonal bolt pattern, so they were nowhere near bolting up to the fuel footwell floor. And this one here, although it looked right on the internet, them spacings on those holes are actually about 65mm, I think it was. So when you put those together, as you can see, even they are quite a way out. So I had to make an adapter plate. So this is what I came up with initially. So let's move that one out of the way completely, because it's no use. So as you can see, if I put that flat on the floor, it's not going to stay now, because it just wants to be a pain in the bum. So if I want to put that flat on the floor, just let me grab my camera pod, it won't be a sec. So yes, so as you can see, if I put that flat to the floor and then put this one as near as damn it flat to the floor, you can see with the unsprung heights of stuff how high up this pedal is to be the same as that pedal, if you know what I mean. So when this is in its resting state, that's how much higher up the pedal is. So if I try and rotate them so they stay the same, so you can see just how much further forwards this pedal is in comparison to this one. So I needed to make an adapter for this to fit the footwell of the car. So I sort of came up with this. So this was the initial design. So with this, there is a recessed hole there, so I use a really long piece of M6 threaded bar and just put a nut on the end of it. So these two became the bolt holes. First bolt goes into the footwell, and then you mounted that onto there, and then both, that top bolt was another long one that went right the way through, and then the lower hole there went through this, which has a nut heat sunk into the PLA there. So that made a nice mount, but unfortunately it brought it out far enough into the footwell, but the angle of it was completely wrong. So then came Mark II, which is this one. So same thing again, this time it's got 2 long bolts that go straight through into the footwell. I'll show you this in the footwell in just a tick, and then that then bolts directly to this plate, which has got this great big angle on it, which gives you the kicked out angle in which you need. So if I show you this on the car itself, you'll understand exactly what I mean. So now that we're in the footwell, I'll just get the pedal, 2 seconds. So if I get the pedal, you can see those 2 bolt holes up there, those 2. If I was just to mount this direct to the footwell on its own, as you can see, it doesn't go hard up against the footwell there, but it's stuck solid against this original pedal stop, so there's absolutely no motion in that, no movement in it whatsoever, so that is totally useless as is. So now that I've made this, that then bolts into position like that, has a great big angled face on it, which brings this pedal out into about this position here, which is exactly where you need it, in level with the other pedals. You don't want your pedal, that driving pedal, to be right the way down here and having to move your foot up a lot to get to brake, because in real terms with driving, you don't want to be moving your foot miles in order to hit your brake, which is why they're always quite close together. So now that I've done that, I'm quite happy with that. The only thing that is left to do is to buy the electronic throttle body, but as of yet I don't need it. So they're not the cheapest for the 82mm. Oh, let me turn my torch off. So they come in 2 different sizes, the ones that I want. They either do a 72mm. Oh god, it's hard work getting in and out of there. So yeah, they either do a 72mm or an 82mm. So obviously I want the 82. Gives me plenty of scope then for big power if I want to do it later on, without being too big. Because I mean, the one that's on it at the minute, I'm not joking, this Q45 throttle body, that's a 90mm, so it's a little bit smaller than what I've got, so I might as well go for the biggest one that I can. So yeah, but they are, I think they're 120 quid just for the throttle body, and then I need to get all the wiring for it, which I'd probably end up making myself, and yeah, getting all that sort of plumbed into the ECU, which is now in the footwell. And as you know, I can't open the door because it's hard up against the wall over there pretty much. So in terms of getting into that footwell, it's not easy. So wiring in, I think the six wires on the pedal, 6 wires on the throttle body, and then they somehow get spliced together in certain places and share the same signals and positives and negatives and stuff. I don't know how it works yet. I need to have a sit down and have a chat with a couple of lads at work about it, because they know more about it than me, because some of them have already done it. So yeah, trying to get all that lot wired into that footwell is going to be a bit of a pain in the backside for me. So yeah, so in terms of jobs done, fuel's done, a lot of the wiring's done. The next job, like I said, is the turbo and sorting all that lot out, and yeah, just going from there basically. So for now, I think I'm going to leave the video there, and yeah. Oh, one of the next things to do, I should say, is to put this rear bench back into place in the back there, and then it's time to get on with the batteries. And the eagle eyes amongst you might have seen something just in the back of the image there, which is these. So these wheels here, as you can see, these are a 4-bolt pattern, so they won't go on these because these are a 5-bolt pattern. But these are going to be going on the Corolla, because the Corolla standard has 16-inch wheels. These are 17-inch wheels, and these are some genuine Oz Racing, I can never pronounce it properly, Ultra Legaras is I think it's called. So I got them for an absolute bargain price. They were 200 quid. So yeah, 200 quid for some of them, not complaining. So I just need to get some new tyres, and then they can go on Corolla, and then the Corolla can get in for its MOT, because currently all the tyres that are on the Corolla are shot. So once I get that done, get it MOT'd, and the Corolla then will be ready for this year's sort of car season, if you know what I mean. But before I leave you, I thought I'd show you this. So I thought, you know what, why not throw that lower rad panel on, see how it all fits, make sure it's right. So there we go, nice strong jacking point there now, radiator fits, and on the top here, radiator fits in nice gap down that side, nice gap down that side, so everything fits as it should, apart from the standard mounts. So they just hook over the top there, but as you can see, if you pull the radiator in till it makes contact there, you can see the holes don't line up. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to make some aftermarket mounts for that myself, but there's nothing I can't do. But on that note, I'm gonna leave the video there, and we'll see you in the next one. Again, thanks for watching, we'll see you soon.